Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I had such a fun weekend. I hung out with Ross Matthews. I saw my girlfriends. I hung out with my sons. It's all going to be on Patreon Friday. I'm excited you guys to hear it along with some other scoop. So you go to patreon.com/juicy scoop or heathermcdonald.net. I have a great interview with Potomac's own Robyn Dixon. And before I get into that, I just want to do a couple hot topics and get into the last episode of Potomac just to catch you guys up to date. But there was another quarantine breakup, you guys. Former Bachelor JP, or was Ashley the Bachelorette? Ashley was a bachelorette. She married kind of a shaven head hot guy named JP. They had a couple kids. They did Wee's marriage boot camp. Anyway, they did one of those posts just asking for their privacy. So, of course, I'm talking about it. But I'm sorry, that's the price you pay. And it was, we've tried. We just grew apart. We are going to raise our kids together, all of this. So another one bites the dust. And then Kelly was saying, oh, I'm surprised they did marriage boot camp because they both had normal jobs. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, before they had normal jobs. Nobody goes back to their normal job once they get into the Bachelor world. They go that route of like Instagramming and endorsing and maybe fitness or maybe something. So that really can't help either. Even if you had a normal job, I don't know how you can just go back to like doing data entry and everyone's like, hey, can I ask you a question about that date you went on and their alone time? I mean, so know that once you do it, you're done. All right, let me get into the Real Housewives of Potomac on the latest. This was fun. Our girl Robyn Dixon, who you're going to hear from in a minute, she bought the same pink blazer dress that our girls Erica Jane and Lisa Rinna wore on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And they wore this pink outfit because the new girl, who is Nigerian, was celebrating her baby girl's, it wasn't a christening. It was just like, let's celebrate that we have a baby. And Nigerians start parties 2 hours late. So Robyn was there sitting by herself in her pink outfit for 2 hours. And the baby's so cute. And the baby had a bonnet hat just as large as her mother's. Like they didn't even make it smaller. It's hilarious. But what happened last night for the juicy part of it is, as you know, we've got our Ashley, who's married to Michael. And Michael had moments where they thought that he was with a guy. Someone had said that a couple years ago in a hotel room in London. Then he grabbed a cameraman's ass, which that was dropped. But then last week, someone just discovered that he's on camera in the back of an episode of the first season grabbing another cameraman's ass. Look on it, it's everywhere. I think it's on Juicy Scoop Obsessed. But I guess that guy didn't press charges, but the guy later on did, but it was eventually dropped. Then the latest one is that he cheated on her while the show was being filmed one night when she took the baby, because they have a baby together, off to film. So they go to have counseling, and she tells the counselor, we didn't have a conventional marriage. We oftentimes, included other people in our lovemaking, but never, we had rules, like I guess threesome swinger type rules, which is oftentimes you don't do anything with someone else without the other one's permission. Most likely that they at least get to watch in a corner or be part of it, or at least get like a shoulder rub or something out of it. I don't know. And she says, but I don't want to do that anymore. And he's like, wow, because he used to want to. And they have a huge age difference. And last night she said he's a millionaire. So I guess he's really rich. It doesn't look like they live that extravagant of a lifestyle. I believe he was married with kids before. So I assume he's, having to give something to that. But he's got to at least be 25 years older than she. And I think she was a freak 7 days a week, before a certified one, before they had the baby. And I think that's how she hooked him. And I think she was really into bringing out other girls and really being sexy and performing and always acting like she was super into him. And I was talking about this with my friend, and she said, do you think that you could ever give a guy such great sex that he'd get so like pussy whipped by you kind of like the Chris Watts murder story, that he could, not necessarily kill his family, hope to God not, but like leave his wife because that's such like a loveless marriage and you're so good at sex that he would leave her for you. I said, absolutely not. I know for a fact I'm not that good at sex, but my friend who was telling me, I think that she definitely is. I said, and she goes, no, I have confidence in you. I'm like, well, you have more confidence than me. But I think there's some girls, and then you present yourself like you are this certified freak, like you are so into it, ready to go, cannot get enough of your man's D, just like Cardi B said. She said she went back to Offset because she's like, you know what? I just need some dick, okay? Like, don't be so critical of me. I know that's not a good impression. I need to see her, but I just like that and the nails. Anyway, she went back to Offset because she said she couldn't live without the dick. But obviously, she probably presented herself like that. Then she had her daughter, and then she was probably like, I'm not into doing it that much. But then we went away. She is. Getting back to Ashley, she says to the counselor, I don't want that life anymore. I don't desire it. And he's like, wow, well, now that you've had the baby too, like you're not even giving it to me, let alone like the freaky fun we used to have before Dean came along and ruined it for all of us. And the baby's like 3 months old. So I just think that's a warning to some of you guys out there that, meet some young girl. Maybe you are separated. Maybe you're with your current wife and you think this is going to go on forever. It's not. She's going to be just like every other mom, have a baby, even with all the help in the world. She is not going to be as horny for you once she has that ring and that baby. Just know that. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, you guys, now for our real juicy interview with Robyn Dixon. Get ready. She's a delight. This
Hi,
is
Tony.
so great because I've got one boy on Zoom class in the back, plus Bravo on mute.
Exactly.
This is just everything. I'm with Robyn Dixon, everyone's favorite Potomac housewife. Do you know that you are the favorite? Are you aware?
It doesn't feel like that sometimes.
I feel
or a
like
lot of times.
with my audience, which is, of course, I'm going to tell how much I love my Juicy Scoopers, but I feel like they're like a really great, like supportive, level-headed group of women, predominantly women. Of course, we have guys too. And yes. From this season, just more and more, I was seeing like comments on my Facebook and stuff like, Robyn is all of us. Robyn forgetting one of the kids' names. Robyn sending the wrong text to Ashley. Yeah. I want to get into all that. And just kind of how, like, I just think it's just refreshing to see a housewife 4 years in. This is your 4th season, right? Fifth. And you've been there from the start, right?
Yep.
That you have not turned into a fame whore nightmare.
Nope.
You have not changed. And you still just kind of laugh and are having fun. And
yes.
But also, I mean, I feel like you've been pretty unscathed as far as pissing off the women as well. So it's just like you're like a unicorn in the Bravo world.
I am. You know what? It's so funny. It's like I am like that normal person that like I represent the silly, goofy people out here that don't take themselves too seriously, and kind of like don't really care what people think. So like I love just like coming in, telling it like it is, but from a non-biased perspective. I think people, and I think that's kind of why I maybe can remain unscathed between the women, because they know that like when I have something to say, like it's coming from a fair place. It's not, I don't talk just to talk, like I'm not one of those like I don't need to be the center of attention. I don't need to be the most boisterous one, but when I have something to say, it's usually worth listening to. So, and so I appreciate all the Juicy Scoopers, and everyone who appreciates me for not being that like, I don't want to say stereotypical housewife, but like, I'm not your normal Real Housewife. I know that. And I'm never going to like, change who I am to try to fit into that mold or that stereotype at all. Like, I wouldn't even know how to do that. So,
well, before we get into all the scoop of the show and your castmates, I just want to get a little bit to know about like what you did before we saw you on TV 5 years ago. Yeah. Like where did you grow up? Did you go to college? Did you have a career before the kids? Like I don't know any of that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I grew up in Baltimore. I, of course, met Juan, my future husband, in high school in Baltimore. So we're both from Baltimore.
So you went to the prom with him.
So I went to his prom, yes. And we're like one year apart. So he was a junior and I was a senior when we met.
Oh, you were like a baby cougar.
But he's older than me. Okay, so it's like a crazy story. Okay, so I was smart I was really smart, and I started school early. And then he kind of missed like 80 days of fourth grade and failed the fourth grade.
Oh. So he was held back. Yeah. And when you found out that he was held back, which had a big stigma growing up, now people hold him back so that all the boys get held back because they realize they should be held back and they'll do better in sports. So now people are holding back. There's like 20-year-old seniors now in high school.
Exactly. I know. So that worked out for him athletic-wise because he was like 145 pounds when I met him. So like, thank God he was held back. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made it to the NBA probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so we met in high school in Baltimore. Then I went to the University of Maryland and he followed me there. So we both went to Maryland. So we are like literally like high school, college sweethearts. I got a degree in marketing at Maryland, and instantly, I think my first job out of Maryland was at Otis Elevator. I also worked for Under Armour. I also worked for my mother. She has like a printing and like promotional product company, so I worked for her. But right before Housewives, I was working for a PR agency, and I was like the event manager specialist. So I was managing tons and tons of events for our clients. Actually, season 1, I was in the midst of like a huge, like a very, very busy event season while filming season 1. And, you know, we didn't know like what we were doing. It was like we were just like thrown into the fire. And I literally was like losing my mind because I was so incredibly busy. Like filming the show, I would have to go from filming the show, running to an event and all that type of stuff. So after that season, actually season 2, I tried to keep my PR job, and like 2 weeks in, I was like, I gotta quit. So
yeah. And so
So
where did it happen where you guys got married, had kids, got divorced, and then he moved back in? This is all very confusing.
Well, yeah. So we were married in 2005, divorced in 2012, and then in 2013 he moved back in. And it was kind of like
literally wait, I have a question. So literally like your divorce gets final, and then within months he moves back in.
He's back. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't even really get to experience that like, you know, you take this is your weekend with the kids and I'm like free, and you know, that was like the one thing I was looking forward to, like his weekend and my weekend, you know, like I never really got to like fully enjoy that. I hear that that's like one of the most beautiful things about divorce. So,
but I don't understand. I don't understand first why you got divorced. Like, what was the main thing? And then why so quickly did he move back? And at that time, were you romantic, or did he move back just because you were trying to have a better parental situation for the kids?
Right. So we got divorced because, I mean, we were kind of like going through the motions with our marriage for a few years, never really addressed the issues. And when I had children, you know, my kids are 18 months apart. And so by the time the second one came along, I was like, I don't care. You know, like I was like, we're literally just coexisting. And it honestly was the best thing for us. Like we needed to kind of, and I mean, of course, like there was infidelity. Carter, mind your business. He's like, what do you mean? You know, of course, there was like infidelity and just, it was a whole lot of stuff going on. He was at the end of his NBA career, which I don't know if you know much about, like when professional athletes' careers are over, like they literally go through a death, and
I can't imagine how hard that would be, that you go from that
Yeah.
and that routine. Oh, this is the week that I start training, and this is the week that it ends,
Exactly.
and
Like
for
having
that
a
to all
purpose.
end. Yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah. It
I
was just
always
like
think that would be hard on the wives.
it's incredibly hard. It's so hard because the guys are really experienced. Like this is something that they've done probably since they were 8 years old. Every day they're going to practice, they're training. They're so, they have a schedule, and then when it's like over, it's like over, and it's really, really hard sometimes for the guys to realize like they're going through a difficult time, and it's like you almost have to say, look, you got to figure this out on your own. Because there's nothing that we as the wife can do to make them happy. And they're still seeking that like adrenaline rush. They're still seeking attention from people. They show up to a basketball game and they have the crowd cheering for them and people care about them. All of a sudden when they're not playing anymore, no one cares. So, it's just a lot of that going on, like him kind of like still wanting to be like wanted. And I got 2 little kids here. Like, I'm sorry. Like, either you're helping me change a diaper, or you're just going to just leave
Go
me
away.
alone.
Yeah.
You know
and
what I mean?
those
Yeah.
are hard years. Like it's, especially now, like with the kids being home and my boys being older and yours being older, I'm like, oh God, thank God they're not like 4 and 7 or something. Thank God they're a
Exactly.
little older that they can do some stuff on their own. But those years when they're
Exactly.
babies, I don't even remember them.
Oh, it was like torturous for me because I loved, like, it was, I'm happy that it happened the way it did because my kids are like so tight. They're best
Yeah.
friends. But during that time, you literally have an infant or a newborn screaming its head off at like 4 a.m. And then you've got a toddler that's waking up at 7, running all over the place. And like, I was just a zombie. And I was like, if you're not here to help me, like, just leave me alone. So, we just kind of, it was very necessary for us to kind of just get to a better place. It's like when you're like sometimes you just can't make it better. You can't force it.
And how did your parents feel about him throughout this time? I mean, were they okay with you getting divorced? Were they pushing the reuniting? Like, we kind of know how Giselle's dad is not a real fan of her getting back with her ex-husband.
Right.
Like, how do your parents feel?
Right. Here's Corey. Say hi real quick so you can excuse
Hi. Hi, Corey.
Hi.
Mom,
Yeah. Corey, leave me alone.
Mom, I finished my geography.
Oh,
That's
good.
awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Good. Whew.
Everybody,
Okay.
Corey finished his geography. Okay.
Believe me, that's an accomplishment. Okay, so my parents, because we were together since high school, and Carter, can you put your headphones on, please? Thank you. So my parents, since we were together since high school, and I don't really know if you know this about Juan, but he lost both of his parents by the time he was 15 years old to drug-related AIDS. So they both died of AIDS from drug use. So my parents always had a soft spot for him. They really kind of like treated him like their own son. But they also understood just like him being an athlete, a professional athlete, like he's not living in like a normal world where,
Right.
and so it's unfortunate. Like they should be held to the same standards as everyone else, but until you experience that world, like, you really can't judge. So they understood that, and they always felt like he had so much greatness in him that they never were angry at him. They never turned their back on him. They were there for him even while we were going through our stuff. My father had some very, very real conversations with him and says, I understand, like that's my daughter, and you got to do right by her, but I also understand you're human, you're a guy, like, my father's not perfect. No man is perfect. So they really
And
treated him with
your parents are
understanding.
still together as a couple?
Yeah. Yeah. My parents are still married. They've been married. What am I? I'm 41. My brother's 44. They've probably been married close to 50 years now.
Wow.
Before you was that.
Corey, go away. So my parents, and I come from a family just traditionally of like, married. I'm actually the only person in my family to get divorced. So
Wow.
I come from a very strong family-oriented family where it's like, no, you're going to figure it out. You're going to make it work. You're going to, put your family first. So my parents although they were disappointed, they understood both of our perspectives, where we were, and they understood that Juan was human and that he also had a background. Like he came from a broken place.
Like he came from like the complete opposite childhood than what you had. You had the picture perfect, just the great foundation. Yeah. And it's really, I think so many times when people talk about, just to be honest, like privilege, there is the privilege, but there's really the privilege of having a two-parent household that showed loving and respect to each other. That's something that, is beyond the color of skin and cultural and everything else. That if you didn't have it, there's just no way that you can say how you'd be today.
Absolutely. I'm so grateful and thankful that, I was raised the way that I was raised, and that my parents, really valued, they valued family, and they also valued how their actions and their relationship affects their children. And that's really honestly why I am the way I am today, because that kind of was passed down to me. Because you just never know. Like for me, it was just, although like the divorce was necessary, it was like, it's too much of a gamble for me to try to figure out like, well,
but do you feel it sounds like the divorce was the catalyst to get him to change to be the man that we all knew he could be, like Absolutely. Your family and everybody. It was. So was it literally like the divorce papers are signed, he gets delivered, and then what? He starts hitting you up and begging for you back? Like, how quickly did he realize that he really fucked up?
It was, so let's say, I think our divorce was final in like March, and it was the next January when he called me pretty much like, I don't want to say begging, but asking if he could come back home. Now, mind you, like he was still going through his very difficult transition from playing in the NBA. He had spent a few years trying to like get back to the NBA, and it just wasn't working. And, so he was in a really down place. And I told him at that time, I said, and we had gone through something, I don't know if you recall, like our friend took our money and committed suicide.
Somebody asked about that. Can you just share a little bit about that story?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So our friend, Juan's best friend, they actually knew each other in high school. He was on his he played basketball at Maryland with him. We were all like best friends. Like we hung out all the time. And when Juan was actually kind of like not very present, he was very supportive. He was like he was supportive of me, of the boys. Like he was just there, kind of, I would like express frustration, and he was always there to like help me through it. And so, I look back, I'm like, I guess it was pretty strategic, kind of like, that I was in a bad place. And so it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, let me be there for her, but also let me figure out how to take some money, But he was kind of posing as like an investment banker. And because he was my friend, I wanted to like support him and believe him. And he would always come to me with all these kind of like, oh, I've got this deal. If you jump in, you'll get your money back plus, 20% in a month and blah, blah.
It's the classic Madoff. It's the classic, look how great the return is. Oh, I'll give more money now. It's Billionaires Boys Club. This has been a scam that's gone on. It's American Greed. It's every episode of American Greed, And
it is.
But really heartbreaking when you knew the person.
Yes, it was so devastating to me because, he did it for a while because it started off small. Oh, just give me $4,000 and my $4,000 turned into $8,000. It was like a month, 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, let me give you more and let me give you more. You know what I mean? It just like, it was awful, but he was doing it to so many people and so many of our friends. Like it was like when like everything started to hit the fan and like started talking to people and they all were like, yeah, he's got my money and he's got my money and he's got my money. And I think it got to a point where he had the wrong person's money, and I think he was receiving death threats. And that's kind of when he decided to take his life. He was also being like, he went to court. He was sued for like taking like $300,000 of another person's money, and he was going through court, and if he didn't pay it back, he was going to go to jail. It was like so much crazy stuff. It was unbelievable, and we had no clue that it was going on until like literally 2 weeks before he took his life.
Oh,
So
horrible.
it was
Yeah, he jumped off.
it was horrible. Yeah. So Corey, can you please stop? Oh my God.
So he comes back after that tragedy.
So that happened. Yeah. So that all happened in September. So we got divorced in March. The stuff with our friend happened in September. So that really kind of like we were forced to just like lean on one another and support one another because it was very tragic and devastating. And then that kind of,
How much did you lose in general? Approximately.
It was up there, like hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Oh
It was
my
up there. And
God.
at that time,
Yeah, did you get your money back?
guys, will you leave me alone? I'm busy.
Can you answer the question first?
What?
Did you get your money back?
No.
Oh,
Okay, bye.
you still should have shot him. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay. I can't wait until this pandemic is over.
Yeah. So you were saying, okay, so then, you kind of leaned on each other. He
at
comes
that
back.
time,
And
yeah.
and when he comes back, how far from when he starts to come back does it become, just two friends raising a kids together to then becoming romantic again?
Yeah. So January. So it was like January came, and he was dating another woman, and
Did
she
you
lived
ever
in-
date anyone?
not like I mean not like seriously like, but I did have conquests.
Okay.
If that's what you want to call them. Yes.
Okay. And was that kind of crazy for you? Because I always ask people that have been with someone really long. Because
Yeah.
the kids are out of the room now, right? Okay, so like, what is it like the first time there's like a new tongue in your mouth, a new dick? Like, what is that like after you've been with this dude since high school?
You know what? It was so at first I was like, I would judge everyone. And now, like, I've always been attracted to like athletic people. So I always knew, like, I was like, I just couldn't date someone that wasn't athletic. Like, you didn't have to be a professional athlete, but you at least needed to work out.
Right,
So,
you'd have to be a fit, bigger guy. Yeah.
yeah. So like, I remember this one guy, he was so nice and so sweet. And I asked him, I was like, oh, do you work out? And he was like, no. And I was like, like, gotta go. So, you know what I mean? So finally, like, I found my athlete, my athletic guy, and it was refreshing. It really was. It was like, oh wow. It was kind of refreshing because it's like, okay, like I can do this. Like, I don't have to like just only want one person or only be used to one person. So
Yeah.
it was definitely refreshing.
And then, when did he start hitting you up again while he's still dating this other girl? And is the other girl like coming to the house? Do you see her?
No.
Okay.
No. So she actually lived in Florida. So he was
Okay.
down there with her, and she was a nutcase. And when you go from like me, and I'm like very understanding, I'm easy, I'm as good as it gets for a man. Like, if they
Yeah.
want like a supportive woman that's like, got a lot to offer, but is not like acting crazy every second, like, I'm your girl, right? So
Right.
anyway, so he was down there with this nutcase, and he called me one day. He literally like jumped in the car and was like, I'm driving from Florida and I'm coming. Please, can I just come home? And I'm like, listen, you could come home, but you have to go back to, because he didn't finish his degree at Maryland. I said, you have to enroll in classes right away and finish your degree. And he only had like 9 credits left. And he made that promise. And that's what he did. Like, that's when he kind of realized, like, okay, my NBA playing days are over. I gotta grow up. I got to get my degree. I got to start working. Like, he really wanted to be a coach. And in order to coach on the college level, you got to have a degree. So he came home, he enrolled in classes right away, and he got his degree that spring. So that was the deal.
This is like, to every woman listening, they're like, can I retrain this dog? Can I make this husband? This is a very inspiring story. It's very,
Yeah.
it's actually really amazing because, there's so many men out there that make, that where they break up and they get this other girl and the wife is like, really? I have a friend that got divorced and he married the mistress, and boy, did she make his life hell.
Miserable. Yeah.
And now that that's ending, I'm like, don't you think he looks to see that you, successful, fun, down to fuck for 15 years, fit, delightful woman, makes her own money, but that just wasn't good enough,
Yep.
And now
Yep.
I'm like, he must look across the street and be like, what the fuck did I do for this
Yeah.
little, this little something? So he was smart enough to realize, like, yeah, exactly. What the hell am I doing? Let
Yeah.
me see if I can fix this. And I think that's
Right.
amazing.
Exactly. And, the thing about guys is, like, so for one, I was like, you come home, you got to get your degree. We'll figure things out. But, like, I just needed to see him change. Number one, I needed to see him acknowledge that he was a piece of shit before. You know what I mean? Sorry, I don't know. Can I curse
Yeah,
here?
that we can, yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
He just, so the fact that he even acknowledged that, he wasn't a good person, he totally didn't appreciate me. He totally, like, he did, but he didn't. He knew what he had, but he just, he's being a man. He can't help himself. I honestly believe men don't really grow up until they're like mid 40s. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
Well, I know from a study that I read about that their brains don't finish, they're not fully developed until 30.
Yeah.
30.
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, there's some amazing ones that are just amazing from, like, the age of whatever, 18, and they're just like, they do the right thing. But, like, and I don't want to, like, paint men with this like big broad brush and stereotype them, but I really believe, like, it takes them a long time to really get it together. And, unfortunately for most of them, it's too late. Like, they've lost out on that perfect woman that, would have just been the best partner for them. And she's moved on and, got some other guy. Like, but, fortunately for Juan, I wanted to see him, I wanted to help him succeed. I wanted to help him get to a place of, happiness and get his life back on track.
Where he felt fulfilled again being a coach. He needed to feel that fulfillment that he was getting from, before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And really it was, and it's not just because I cared about him, which I do and I did. It was more, I care more about my kids. And I want my kids to have a father that's amazing. That's not, you know what I mean? Like, so I felt like if I supported their father and helped him just become the amazing man that I know he can be, then my kids were going to be better off for it.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of like twofold. Like, I'm a very selfless person. I put people ahead of myself all the time, but not to say that I don't treat myself good. But I'm very, like, mentally strong. I can, like, take a lot of things. So I know, like, let me make sure these other people are straight before really focusing on myself. So
right.
Once I saw that change in him, he devoted himself going back to school. He got his degree. We were very good. Like, we lived together. It wasn't under he wanted to kind of be, like, back together. And I was like, no. Like, you can live here. We can, support one another. We can, I call it function as a family. But, like, as far as, like, me opening up my heart to you, it wasn't happening right away. But eventually it happened just because I saw, like, he just continued to get better and better and better. And, it's almost like you're waiting for, like, something from the mess up big time or to really fall back on, like, some bad habits or something. And it never really happened. And so we just kept growing as a couple.
And I mean, you're not the only person who's attracted to Juan. In the
I've heard
a lot of no, everyone says where they were saying, do they know that they're the most attractive housewife couple? But also, let's get into the show and the juicy scene that happened last year with Michael making I guess he'd say it was a joke, but I've never heard any of my friends' husbands or my husband make a joke about wanting to suck Juan's dick.
Yeah, no. Right, it's funny just saying that, I know. Like, who says that out loud?
I mean, you guys, the season is so amazing, but the last few years have had a lot. Like, I was just telling your publicist before you came on, like, I really love the show. I've liked it from the beginning. You know, you came and did my live show at the City Winery there. But I think what's so great even about this season is that, you know, there is these big dramas with Ashley and her cheating husband, Michael, and the rumors from last season if he is into girls or guys or both. And then there's the horrible fight, which I want to get into too, the physical fight. But then there's like these really genuinely like funny, like all of you guys are funny. Like Karen's funny.
Right.
I mean, that parade in the periwinkle suit and, you know,
like
Giselle,
kissing babies.
Yes. And it was just like those things are funny. And I know that you and Giselle, you know, came on the show together and are best friends. Is that ever a problem that you're able to, you know, have her back and be her bestie when she does, you know, piss off people or, you know, how has that been to?
Right. So, you know, it's so funny because I do call her out a lot on, you know, some of the stuff she says and does. And like we talk almost every day on the phone. And, you know, we might talk about something and I'm like, no, that's not cool. Or I do the same thing to her. I'm like just how I am on the show where I kind of offer like different perspectives. I'm offering her different perspectives. And a lot of stuff that she says, she'll say, you know what, you're right, Robyn. So,
for example, we just saw in the sorry, what were you going to say? Go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, privately, I hold her accountable. I'm never going to throw her under the bus, you know, and
right.
just, and talk about her in the way that, like, the other ladies might not. But I can also say sometimes they might not show me telling her about herself either.
Oh, you mean the editing?
I don't want to say that,
right? But
yes.
there's probably more of that.
But I don't get to see everything,
right? Of course, we know we don't get to see everything, and you know, and you do forget as you're watching it because you feel like you know these women, so you feel you can speak on everything based on what came through the television, you know, and that's always such a hard part of a housewife to not really get pissed off and go Twitter crazy on some fan, you know, that you know, pushed a button of theirs and you're like, but you didn't see what I said.
Exactly.
But
I just hit block and keep it moving.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. But with let's first talk about the Michael stuff. So with that, you had a great attitude about it. I mean, you shared your thoughts and you kind of laughed about it. How did Juan feel? Did he ever feel uncomfortable being around him, or he didn't care?
No, I mean, so when I first told him, he laughed. I was like trying my best not to tell him because I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. I didn't know how he would receive that information. So I did my best, like, not to repeat that to him. I did not come home and say, oh my God, you won't believe what Michael said. Like that was not coming out of my mouth. But, and I think I said this on the reunion or something, like Michael called Juan and told him, like, can you please ask Robyn to stop talking about me? And so I was forced to tell him what was said. And his first reaction was, like, he busted out laughing. Like, he was just like, this is ridiculous. And, but he wasn't uncomfortable around Michael. He just thought it was a little strange. And I won't say he chose to, like, Juan kind of like stays out of it anyway. So he wasn't going to make like a big statement about it. He kind of wanted to just pretend like I never told him that was said. So
I think it's probably the best. Because if you make too big of a thing, then someone will be like, oh, he's homophobic or, you know.
Exactly.
Or, and he doesn't care. And like, who really knows, you know, was it? But, you know, then there was sort of a history of of the
Yeah.
fact.
But Juan knows like he knows I don't make stuff up. Like he knows
Right.
that like I don't lie, I don't make stuff up. So he totally believed me. But he definitely wasn't going to like do or say anything to like make Michael think that he was uncomfortable with it.
So we see the reunion from last season. The other charge was that a cameraman said that he grabbed his ass, and in which they denied it. And we had audio, but we didn't have visual. And then in the end, it all got dropped. All the charges got dropped, and they continue on the show. Ashley gets pregnant, gives birth to their son Dean, and then we see that she brings the baby to the lake house, and he is seen talking to another woman, and then that woman goes to the hotel room and snaps very compromising photos. A man in his underwear in a hotel room with an unmade bed, which is obviously him in the back, and Ashley, his back, and Ashley confirmed that. Of course, he said he just was so drunk and tired that he took off his clothes and went to bed with just his underwear on, and then woke up, and then that photo was taken, which we know is completely probable, right?
Yeah.
And so in that, she reveals, and I do commend her for being just not like ending it all, and she continues with being on the show. And we see that she says, confronts him about it. And then she shares that like she kind of had an open marriage. What was your reaction when you heard that? When she's like, well, I've been with girls with him, and we've done what sounds to be threesomes, but now I don't want to do threesomes anymore.
Right. So honestly, that to me felt like a deflection from the real topic. I didn't see what one had to do with the other. She's saying, oh, they've had experiences together in the past. I was like, okay, but we're not talking about the past. And so it was like she was almost taking responsibility for his behavior. And, who knows why? Who knows if it's just maybe she didn't really want to deal with it in front of cameras, and she was kind of doing her best to try to make it go away. Or, maybe she's in denial, or maybe she's not ready to end her marriage. I don't know. Like, I really don't know the reasons for why she would kind of say what she said about their relationship. It just felt like an excuse to me. Like, it was like making excuses for his behavior, which didn't make it any better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's what is hard, is there's a lot of women that stick with a husband that they have absolute proof of, and they want to give it another shot. They want to have that another baby with the same husband, and they're like, hey, we may not be together in 5 years, but let me get my babies out and not have to deal with one motherfucker, not two. I get it. And also let me see. And so I thought for being on the show and staying on the show, I think she handled it pretty well. And asking for the post-nup and all that. And now we know she's pregnant again. But one thing that, again, everyone fell in love with you with was when you sent the story via text of the scandalous blog of him being caught in the hotel room. And you're like, now, what was it? You meant to just send it to the group without her, but you sent it to what was it? Explain.
So I was talking on the phone with Charisse from, who's our... on the show, or was on the show before. I was on the phone with Charisse, and I was just, telling her about our weekend. And I talked to Charisse a lot, and I was like, oh my gosh, when we were there on the way home, I started getting all these, DMs of, pictures of Michael in this hotel room and blah, blah, blah.
So fans are sending you stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay. Our DMs. So it was crazy. It wasn't until we left the lake house. Well, remember, we didn't have cell phone service. So
right.
I like gave up even looking at I definitely couldn't see anything on Instagram.
Yeah.
So as soon as we got in the car and we had cell phone service and we open up our Instagram, there's just tons and tons of DMs of these pictures. Mm-hmm. And so I was just talking to Charisse about it, oh my gosh. And so I was like, oh, let me send it to you. And when you're you have someone on your mind. So instead of typing Charisse, I typed Ashley. And when I sent it, and she's like, I didn't get it yet. And I'm like, and I go back and I look and I'm like, oh shit, I sent it to Ashley. I was like, Like crap. But that's not to say I wouldn't have sent it to her anyway. I would have just assumed that she saw it already.
Right.
Like, so I would have thought there was no need for me to send it, but I still would have checked on her and said like, hey, how are you doing? How are you handling things?
I think you saved yourself really well by you then said that you were like, hey, how do you want us to respond to this publicly? Which is amazing. I think we've all done that where, I was texting about a friend being annoying to another friend.
Yeah.
And then that annoying friend wrote me, and then I wrote back thinking I was writing to the one I was confiding in, and instead wrote back to the annoying friend and being like, I don't even want to fucking go to this lunch anymore or whatever. And then the annoying is like, wait a minute. Was this meant for me? And I'm like,
shit. Yeah.
And somehow I tried to save it, but I don't think she believed me. I can't really remember, but I think everyone's been there. Where you're texting two people and you send the wrong message to the
Oh my God. I literally, after that experience, I
triple check.
Yes. I'm like, I don't care what I'm sending. I'm like, okay, make sure it's the right person. Okay. So yeah, that was funny.
Okay, so now let's get into the fight that was, we've seen some fights on this show, and we've seen some physical fights on this show. The reunion with Portia and Kenya on Real Housewives of Atlanta. We've seen, Candy get pissed, but this was, I think, just really shocking for people to see because she grabbed her hair, and you guys are all, and like some of the male crew members getting in there trying to release her claw. Now, so I was watching Watch What Happens Live the other day, and Wendy, the new cast member who is great, she was like, oh, she must have had some really good wig glue. Now, wasn't that her own hair? There's no way that would have not come off, right?
No. So what happened, that was a wig, but Candace was holding her wig down with her hands.
Oh.
Because she did not want her wig to come off. Like, first of all, if you were able to, whatever she was holding it down with, whether it was like, wig glue or bobby pins, like imagine having that pulled off, like how much that will hurt. So she was like literally holding like this. And I think at one point she kind of like was trying to, eventually started trying to like defend herself, but she was holding her wig tight on her head.
And when it started to get a little heated with the two of them being like, oh, hello, like, it kind of reminded me, remember when, in Atlanta, there was that moment with She by Sheree?
Oh, yes, Sheree.
And it was a little bit of that, but it never got physical. It was a little bit of like acting like a bitchy high school girl, kind of taunting each other. And it went from that to, and you guys are kind of sitting around, and I think, once again, you're just like a little buzzed and laughing. And then we just see... Like, what were you guys even thinking? Was it so fast that you had to like go back and watch in slow-mo too, like the rest of us?
Oh yeah. It was so fast, and it exactly was that. Like, I'm literally standing there like laughing at them because it was like and I'm like, what is wrong with them? Like first I'm like, I don't even understand why. I never understood, and I still don't understand why there was even an issue between the two of them.
Isn't it because Candace is friendly with the Charisse, and she feels that Charisse is putting rumors out there that Monique's marriage is a little iffy?
I'll be honest, I don't buy that. I really don't, because we all knew about these rumors. So I don't know why Charisse was such a threat. But as far as the rumors, like, we all knew about these rumors for a very long time. So in my opinion, Charisse was not a threat. When it came to the rumors. So I'm still quite confused about that, to be honest.
And it seems like maybe that's why Candace was so confused. Like, why are you coming at me when the husbands are like really close and we're fine? But then I think Candace started to get pissed at Monique, pulled out of the live podcast show. And so Monique was probably pissed about that. But can you blame her? Can you blame her the way way Monique treated her at the lake house? Like, and it was bad. It was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you keep picking on this girl? It was really like, I really felt bad for Candace because I was just like, this is making no sense to me. Like, it felt very deliberate that she was picking on her. Right. And then when Candace is like, you guys are sitting around like mid-afternoon around that fire thing, And Candace is like, oh my God, forget, like, I'm not even dealing. You're missing the point. Like, you're misinterpreting what
Right.
I'm saying. I'm not trying to break up a marriage. Like, what are you talking? And she gets up and leaves. And I totally related to Candace at that point. I'm like, when you're like, oh my God, I'm done even trying to explain. And it was like
Yeah.
Monique
Yeah.
was trying at that point to like find shit to fight with her about somehow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
so then
agree.
they get to the winery and it came out of nowhere, but it didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
For
I
some
mean,
reason.
and
Yeah.
like think about it. Like we've all seen Candace get very passionate and upset. So it almost felt like maybe Monique was picking with her to try to get that type of reaction out of Candace. You know, it just it felt so wrong to me, and it didn't like it made zero sense. So yeah, at the I mean, it's so crazy. We're at the barn and we go from Candace saying, "I love us, I love all of you," to literally an altercation. Like it made no sense, and it still makes no sense to me. Like I still need to know like what exactly was that deep to make you go that far. Granted, if Monique never touches her hair, they probably never would have gotten physical. That's really what initiated it all. Like it just, but it went so fast, and I'm literally holding the table up the whole time. So the table was like a wooden plank that was laid across these barrels, and it was super heavy. So once they started kind of like, the commotion started, the plank started to fall over. And if that had fallen on them, there would have been maybe some broken toes or feet or knees, something. So I'm literally holding this table up, but I'm watching the whole time, like feeling helpless because I can't help. I'm holding the table up, but I'm watching like the intent in her eyes. And it just felt so like she was really, really angry about something. And I just couldn't figure out what would have made her angry in that moment. So.
And then, then she runs, you think she settled down, and then she breaks from the audio guy and starts running around the barn to try to get to her car.
Yeah.
So then
yeah.
it makes you go, well, you didn't just snap, because
Right.
you would have realized I snapped. What the hell just happened? But, 5 minutes later, you're like trying to get at her again. And so I can see why everybody was just like, and then I just thought about it. Ashley obviously didn't have the baby with her and she was in the bathroom and missed the whole thing. But I just thought about this now. What if little Dean was like on a carrier?
I mean,
that could have happened.
There's so many what ifs. There's so many what ifs. What if a piece of glass hit someone in their eye? What if someone was seriously injured? Like, it's like, where's the line? It's like some people feel like Candace deserved it, and I don't really understand why. Other people, of course, think that this was like totally out of line, but like, where do we cross? Where's the line here? And it really could have gotten really, really, really bad. And, thank God they ushered Candace out. And, by the time Monique came back around, she was kind of like, they were trying to keep them separated. But
well, do you have any more sympathy now that you saw her kind of break down with her pastor about?
No,
I didn't really understand when he's like, let's talk all about the bullying that you've been through. I was kind of like, what are we talking about? Like I'm just saying as a viewer, because I don't know her whole life, but I did interview her a year ago, and she's, was pleasant and delightful, but I'm like, okay, what do you mean like we all, weren't invited to a slumber party, and we all,
right.
Like, I don't understand. Did she have some unique situation growing up that made her feel like an outsider? Because we just see like a really pretty girl who married a really successful guy who has multiple adorable kids.
Yeah.
So I was just a little bit like, what is this?
I don't know. And, I don't know if that's a part of like, when people get on a show, they're not completely, they're showing their representative, like they're not being completely open with their lives. I don't know. I don't know any more than what the viewers know when it comes to that. And the same thing, it's like you would think in these moments when she's talking to her pastor, or when she's talking to us as a group about why, this fight and why it happened. Like, well, think about it, Heather. Like, if those Candace and Charisse and these rumors were such a big deal, that would have been the perfect opportunity to talk about that. But you'll never see her talk about it to anyone. So it's like,
Right.
that's why I'm like, that's really not the reason, you know? But as far as her bullying, like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. Like, it's very weird.
And so
it
then you
feels like
guys
something
go,
is not, it
being
just
said.
feels like, yeah, maybe something's not being said, or maybe it's being used as an excuse.
So when she comes to the meeting at Karen's house, and Giselle brings her security, and then she also left and said, you know, I can't be around. I love that the shows, yours included, are kind of breaking the fourth wall. And Monique says one of the things that, you know, sparked her thing was that she thought she heard Candace say, you're going to be fired, meaning fired from the show. And then you guys, you know, talk about, like, you know, we're on a show, we're Black women, and by having this physical fight is just, you know, very upsetting to us, because we never want that stereotype to be somewhat, you know, reiterated or proven. And you know, and then Giselle said, well, you know, I am a pastor's wife and I have a image to put, you know, to uphold. And, you know, the fans and people kind of brought up the fact, well, you know, you've also shared in your book that he had multiple affairs and children, and you're getting back together with him. And I am kind of curious, like, how that all comes to play, and that she wrote a book that she won a literary award for, which I think is great, about her life.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's, like, you know, is for getting back together with your children's father if it can work. Her dad is not too thrilled about it, but like, how does it work with, like, their church? Like, she doesn't live there, so does she go to, like, the sermons, or, like,
So
I don't understand how these churches work, because I just go to normal Catholic, like, and they don't, and it's not, like, flashy, it's boring music, and you just go, and if you don't go, nobody calls you and says, where were you? No one really cares. It's, like, just up to you. So, like, I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I'm not a big church goer for that reason, particularly. Like, I just don't like to get involved in, like, it becomes too, you know, gossipy and personal, and it's like, no, like, I'll just read the Bible in my house. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't need all that, like, outside stuff. But there are, you know, in some Black churches, like, the pastor is put on a pedestal, and, you know, you kind of expect them to walk the talk. So it's kind of, but on the flip side, they're also human. And so when the pastor is preaching the word of God, he can also hopefully speak from an experience of not being perfect, and, you know, maybe getting through some trials and tribulations and stuff like that. I mean, it's good to mention that the issues that Giselle had with her ex-husband were 12 years ago. So
Yeah, that is very long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is something that, you know, he had to work through, he had to get through. He had to acknowledge, you know, that it happened, and that's something that I'm sure if he were to marry again, wouldn't happen. So it's kind of unfair to say, like, well, you're being a hypocrite because he did this 12 years ago and he's not a perfect man, versus Giselle's more so concerned with the behavior that she is exhibiting on the show, and that her friends are exhibiting on the show. So it's like, yeah, people want to drag him into it and his past behavior, but it was years ago, and hopefully he learned from it. And hopefully that's something that, like, yeah, he messed up, so he's got to be even on better behavior. So you can't have this, like, checkered past with infidelity and your wife is on TV fighting. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, let's try to keep it, like, as clean as possible. So
I mean,
yeah,
I don't blame the reaction of you guys. Now, she also, you know, might be so horrified that it'll never happen again, but her initial meeting was no remorse, still blaming someone else. So I think she'd probably have to go through a little bit more before, you know.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what is discussed at the reunion, because there has been no apology to Candace, or no real, like, mature conversation about what has happened. It's actually a lot of victimization, I think, and trying to like blame other people and other things. I've heard like she now some like in the footage, if you look at it, you could see like Giselle push her back. And so fans have pointed that out. And so now she's like, oh, well, maybe I got mad because I was pushed. And we're like, no. Oh, you know, first it was, oh, I got mad because she threw wine in my face. And now it's that she was pushed. So it's like all these excuses
I
instead
just think
of just
like
saying.
the minute she grabbed her hair and another hand came on her hand to let go, if you really felt bad or you really kind of snapped, you would have let go. The fact that she held on to that head for like 2 minutes.
Exactly. Right.
It's just,
right. And you had 3 producers yelling, let her go, let her go. Like people were yelling and screaming, let her go. Like that's the part, like you literally had, it wasn't like if it was just like a quick little like smack, like, oh my God, I'm sick of you. And oh, I'm sorry. And you know, or even if it was like, let her go. And then afterwards she's like, oh my God, like, I'm sorry, like, what was I doing? Like, what's happening here? Like, you know, but it was none of that. It was very confusing for us. But for me, honestly, what really was kind of like the very troublesome part was after the few days later when it was in the blogs. And we do a very good job of keeping everything discreet when we're filming. Like you very rarely hear about who's filming, you know, what's going on, where we are. We're not, you know, we're very selective with the pictures we put out, like while we're filming. And so, number one, it was already an issue that like someone has leaked that this fight happened. But then when you leak that, like the information was wrong and pretty much victimizing yourself, you know, giving you a reason to fight and making people think, yeah, I would have hit her too, because if someone throws wine in my face, I'm going to fight too. Like it was horrible. And then it was like, it continued. It was like, oh, well, you know, Robyn and Giselle want her fired and blah, blah, blah. And so then we're on the receiving end of people saying, how dare you want someone fired? And I'm like, where is this information coming from? Like it was really, that part was the worst for me. Like, not only did you just make horrible choices, but you double down on them. And now Candace is getting bullied on social media. It was really, really bad. And now I'm getting attacked for something that people don't know the information to. And when all you had to do, whether or not she's going to admit to releasing this information, which I fully believe she did, all she had to do was say, hey guys, that's not true. Can we stop spreading these rumors? But it just, for a whole year until this scene aired, people really believed that Candace threw a glass of wine at Monique.
And you still have a bunch of episodes left. We saw like the half trailer and the mid-season trailer, and then you'll go and do your reunion.
Yeah.
Right? And so we see one thing about you. We see that Juan is looking for a ring, that Giselle approved it. Like, what can you tell us about that without spoiling anything? Do we know any? Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm trying to look at your hands as you're talking. Do you have the ring?
Oh, I'm not wearing it.
Okay.
I'm like I have like nothing on.
Yeah.
But it was spoiled on Instagram when it happened, and I was so disappointed in that, but I'm like, you know what? I can't keep that a secret forever.
Yeah.
But it definitely happened. So, and you know, it was a fun moment.
But so you're engaged, but you haven't gotten married yet, or did you get married?
No, we haven't gotten married yet. No wedding yet.
Do you plan, if it, you know, goes back to filming and everything gets better with this pandemic and everything, do you plan on sharing your wedding on the show?
I mean, I would love to. I have no reason not to.
I think that would be definitely awesome.
Yeah, and I mean,
everybody
it's so
wants
crazy
to see
that like
yeah,
it's so crazy. Like my adult life has like played out on a reality TV show. So like it would be wrong for me to be like, oh no, I'm going to keep this private and to myself, you know?
Yeah.
Like my whole relationship has come full circle on this show. So yeah, I would be happy to share it now with COVID, like, I don't know what that's going to look like. I honestly would love to have a destination wedding. But I'm also very cautious of the virus. So
When you get married, will you have a bachelorette party with strippers? And will Michael be invited to be with the strippers?
Oh my gosh. Okay, no, Michael's not invited. We want them to ourselves, right?
Okay.
I'm not opposed. I don't really, strippers kind of creep me out.
They grossed me out. I didn't want them at my wedding.
Yeah.
I always feel
I'm
like
I don't.
there's like
don't
sweaty.
touch.
They get too close to your face.
Yes, I remember
yeah.
going to one. Whose bachelorette party was it? Oh, it was one of my sorority sisters? I went to a bachelorette party and the stripper had socks on the whole time, and it like that's all I could look at was like this man is like dancing around in his white tube socks. Like it was just so.
It ruined it for you.
I was like, yeah, nah, like get up. Like that's not it. So I'm not opposed to it because I want the people who are with me to have fun, but like I don't need that for myself.
Yeah.
So
And is
we'll
everything
see.
working out with your tax situation? Are you clearing that up in a good way?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
think
That's
I
definitely
think
been
that
handled.
was I appreciate you too just sharing that. I think that's something that happens to a lot of people.
A lot of people.
And a lot of people that, don't do their own thing or they're not equipped to do it. And I think it's like a good
Right.
lesson, and it wasn't I know it sounds like a lot, but it's actually not like an enormous amount. And so I
Right.
commend you for being honest about that and not freaking out like, kind of like how Karen did with her stuff. And I understand everyone's
Right.
situation is different, and maybe you have an attorney saying, don't say this, do say this. But I think that's another reason why you're so likable, because you're like totally transparent. You're like, yeah, like I forgot about this, and we've all
Right.
had that happen where all of a sudden, or
Right.
something similar. And it's like, all you have to do is just go, yeah, made a mistake. Tell me what I need to do. I'm not
Exactly.
trying to get away with it.
It's like, look, there wouldn't be like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of commercials on the radio and TV about, do you have tax problems?
Right.
If people didn't have tax problems, like I was just like, oh shit. Like I was just like kicking myself because it literally like didn't have to get to the point where it was like public knowledge. But like I'm just like, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
it's like I literally went from like getting a wage statement every year to like having just like random money, from my like real estate and the show,
Right.
whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right. So like, it's fine.
I'm gonna
Like
let you
being
go, but I'm gonna
like self-employed is crazy.
Yeah.
So
It is harder. And I just want to say a
Yeah.
couple things before, because I know you have to go. This is from the fans. Do you know how pretty you are?
aw.
But
thank
do you know that
fans.
you have do you know that you have a perfect face?
No. No, I don't know that. But
Okay,
I
well, you
appreciate
do.
that.
Okay,
Thank you. That's so sweet.
Let's see. Let me see. I think we got everything. And we saw that I saw that it was Juan's birthday, and that
Yes.
you were letting people know that he teaches at a college that doesn't really have a strong basketball program. And
Right.
so I wanted to give you that opportunity to let people know about that.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, Heather. So Juan is a coach at a historically Black university, which they don't receive the same budget or funding that our larger schools do. And so while, it's great, like people want, great talented players to choose these smaller Black schools, to play for. Well, these schools, they don't have the resources to like really wine and dine and give their players like an amazing experience like a University of Maryland or Duke or, University of Michigan or UCLA, whatever it is. Like they
Yeah.
just don't have those resources. And so fundraising is a huge part of their job. And so, if people are inclined to want to help and donate, it is like so welcome and appreciated. I posted on my page about it, but gosh, like where can I send like the link or something? You know,
Why don't you put it? Why don't you put it on your Instagram for like the next, week or two, maybe? So if you go to
Yeah.
your Instagram, you can put that to be on your link.
Oh yeah,
Link in
I'll
bio.
keep it. So there's
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you click on the link in my bio, you can see where you can donate directly to the foundation, where you'll get your tax receipt if people want for their taxes, which
Yes.
somebody like me needs. Or if you don't care, you can just like Cash App. I mean, I'm literally like, just imagine if like every follower of mine sent $1, like that would be $390,000. But I mean, I know that doesn't happen, but
No, but it's
you
great.
know,
I mean, it's true. It's an
Yeah.
easy way to support, and it makes you feel good. And it's especially now with COVID too. A lot of these smaller schools are going to be suffering because kids aren't
Yeah.
going, or they can't afford to go, or they're going to wait a year or whatever. So it's really important to keep all these programs going and everybody employed that works at these schools and all of that.
Absolutely.
Robyn, you were just as
appreciate
delightful as I remember, just as pretty.
Thank
I
you,
loved the
Heather.
boys coming in and out. I love your love story. I'm so excited for the rest of the season. And
Thank you.
everybody follow, it's just your name, right? Robyn Dixon
The number 10, Robyn Dixon 10.
on Instagram and everywhere else. And
Yes.
I'm excited. Everybody, Sunday nights, Potomac. Everybody's now getting into it. People that never watched before are like binging
Oh,
it,
yes.
and they're
I love
all
it.
loving it. So
It's
we're
crazy.
excited.
It's like maybe this is like the one small good thing that came out of everyone being kind of like cooped up at home. They were able to binge the season or the shows, and say like, oh my gosh, like I've been missing out. So I appreciate
Yeah.
everyone for like giving us a chance and embracing us. I know that we're not typical housewives, what like the typical housewife shows, but that's what makes us so unique. We're like
Yeah.
a dynamic cast of women, and I'm going to speak for everyone and say that we appreciate you all.
Yes. And they're funny. They're funny as fuck.
Yes.
And you guys
Yes.
you guys crack me up. So goodbye, Robyn. Good luck with your Zoom school with your boys. Okay.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Bye. Appreciate it.
So you guys, I've got such a good episode coming up on Thursday, a Juicy Scoop History with our girls, Julie and Brandy. As you know, Patreon is there, and you guys are loving the juicy crimes, and a bunch of you jumped up to the Get Me Behind Gates, and I appreciate it. It's so important. So go to patreon.com/juicyscoop. No one has ever been disappointed. I can honestly say that. So I love that you are spreading the word. And so many new people are discovering Juicy Scoop, and it's because of you guys, and you're leaving your 5-star reviews on iTunes, and you're telling them about my special, and it all means so much. And I can't wait to see my Arizona peeps on October 29th and 30th at the Tempe Improv. Have a great rest of your day.